What if I told you that ancient wisdom traditions, from the teachings of Jesus to the mystical practices of the Essenes found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, contained sophisticated understanding of what we now call neuroplasticity? That the very techniques these spiritual masters taught for transformation align perfectly with what brain scientists are discovering today about how we can literally rewire our minds. Today, we're diving deep into the intersection of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge neuroscience. We'll explore how divine truth doesn't just inspire us, it actually changes the physical structure of our brains. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand how to apply these timeless principles to transform your own mind and life. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why certain thoughts seem to have such power over you? Why negative patterns feel so hard to break? Or why some people seem to possess an inner peace that remains unshakable regardless of circumstances? The answer lies in understanding both the ancient wisdom of transformation and the modern science of the brain. The Neuroscience Revolution. For centuries, scientists believed the adult brain was fixed, that neural pathways were set in stone by adulthood. But in the 1990s, everything changed. Researchers discovered neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself throughout life, forming new neural connections and literally rewiring its structure based on our thoughts, experiences, and practices. Dr. Norman Doidge, in his groundbreaking work, The Brain That Changes Itself, showed us that our thoughts don't just reflect our brain's structure, they actively reshape it. Every time you think a thought, specific neural pathways are activated. The more you think certain thoughts, the stronger these pathways become. It's like walking through a field. The more often you take the same path, the more defined that path becomes. But here's what's fascinating. This isn't just modern discovery. The ancient texts reveal that spiritual masters understood this principle millennia ago, though they expressed it in different language. They spoke of renewing the mind, transforming the heart, and becoming a new creation. All descriptions of what we now recognize as neuroplastic change. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, bridged this gap beautifully. He recognized that ancient spiritual symbols and practices weren't just metaphorical, they were practical technologies for psychological transformation. Jung wrote, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." This inner awakening Jung described is literally a rewiring of neural networks. When we shift from unconscious, reactive patterns to conscious, intentional responses, we're creating new neural pathways and weakening old ones. Jesus and the technology of mind transformation. Let's examine Jesus' teachings through this lens of mind transformation. When Jesus spoke about being born again in John 3:3, he wasn't just speaking metaphorically. He was describing a fundamental rewiring of consciousness, a neuroplastic transformation so complete that it creates quite literally a new person. Consider Jesus' approach to transformation. He consistently taught through parables, stories that bypass the analytical mind and speak directly to the subconscious. Modern neuroscience shows us that stories activate multiple brain regions simultaneously, creating rich neural networks that pure information cannot achieve. The parable doesn't just inform, it transforms by creating new neural patterns. Jesus also emphasized the power of belief and faith. In Matthew 17:20, he said that faith the size of a mustard seed could move mountains. From a neuroscientific perspective, belief is one of the most powerful forces for neuroplastic change. When we truly believe something is possible, our brain begins forming the neural pathways necessary to make it reality. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research demonstrates that when we combine clear intention with elevated emotion, essentially what faith represents, we create a powerful state for rewiring the brain. The elevated emotions of love, gratitude, and joy that Jesus consistently taught create the optimal neurochemical environment for forming new neural connections. Jesus' emphasis on love as the highest commandment also aligns with neuroscience. Studies show that practices focused on love and compassion literally change brain structure, increasing gray matter in regions associated with emotional regulation and empathy, while reducing activity in the amygdala, our brain's fear center. The Sermon on the Mount, when viewed through this lens, becomes a comprehensive manual for neuroplastic transformation. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. This isn't just spiritual poetry. A pure heart represents a unified neural state where conflicting thoughts and emotions have been integrated, allowing for clear perception and intuitive knowing. Jesus' teaching on forgiveness is perhaps the most neuroplastically powerful. Neuroscientist Dr. Fred Luskin's research shows that forgiveness practices literally rewire the brain's stress response system, reducing cortisol and inflammatory markers while increasing activity in brain regions associated with emotional regulation and empathy. When Jesus taught his disciples to pray, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors," he was providing a daily practice for neural rewiring that science now confirms as one of the most effective methods for changing brain structure and function. The Essene connection, ancient masters of consciousness. The Essenes, the mystical Jewish sect that many scholars believe Jesus was connected to, developed sophisticated practices for mind transformation that align remarkably with modern neuroscience. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered between 1947 and 1956, reveal a community dedicated to what they called purification of the mind and perfection of the way. The Essenes practiced what they called continuous prayer, not just formal petitions to God, but a constant state of conscious awareness. This practice is remarkably similar to what neuroscientists call mindfulness meditation, which has been shown to increase cortical thickness in areas associated with attention and sensory processing, while reducing the size of the amygdala. In the Community Rule, one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Essenes described the two spirits in man, the spirit of truth and the spirit of deceit. This isn't dualistic theology, it's an accurate description of what neuroscience identifies as two different neural networks. The default mode network, associated with ego, rumination, and self-referential thinking, and the task-positive network, associated with focused attention and present moment awareness. The Essenes understood that transformation required not just understanding truth intellectually, but embodying it through practice until it became their natural state. They spoke of the need to walk in perfection of way, essentially describing the process of making new neural pathways so strong through repetition that they become our default mode of operating. Their practice of communal living and shared resources created what neuroscientists now recognize as optimal conditions for neuroplastic change: social support, reduced stress, and a unified purpose. Mirror neurons fire not just when we perform an action, but when we observe others performing that action. In a community of practitioners, all working toward the same transformation, each person's growth accelerates everyone else's through neurological resonance. The Essenes also practiced what they called mystical union, direct experiential knowledge of divine truth. Carl Jung would later describe this as individuation, the integration of unconscious contents into conscious awareness. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Newberg's research on mystical experiences shows that these states involve decreased activity in the parietal lobe, associated with the sense of self and other, and increased activity in the frontal lobe, associated with focused attention, creating the neural conditions for what mystics describe as unity consciousness. The Dead Sea Scrolls, a neuroscience manual. When we examine specific texts from the Dead Sea Scrolls through the lens of neuroscience, we find remarkable sophistication in their understanding of mind transformation. The Thanksgiving hymns speak of being renewed by your Holy Spirit and experiencing transformation of the mind. The language they use, renewal, transformation, regeneration, are precisely the terms modern neuroscientists use to describe neuroplastic change. In the War Scroll, the Essenes describe the battle between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, not as an external war, but as an internal struggle between different states of consciousness. This maps perfectly onto what neuroscience identifies as the conflict between the prefrontal cortex, our higher reasoning and moral centers, and the limbic system, our primitive fear and desire responses. The Damascus document describes a process called conversion of the heart that involves specific stages: recognition of error, repentance, commitment to new ways, and sustained practice until the new way becomes natural. This is essentially a description of the neuroplastic change process: awareness of current patterns, decision to change, formation of new neural pathways through practice, and strengthening those pathways until they become dominant. What's particularly fascinating is their understanding of community practice. The scrolls emphasize that transformation happens not in isolation, but through what they call covenant community. Modern neuroscience confirms this. We are profoundly social beings, and our brains are constantly being shaped by the neural patterns of those around us through mirror neuron activation and emotional contagion. The Essenes' practice of study, prayer, and work in balanced integration reflects an understanding of what neuroscientists call whole brain development, engaging analytical, emotional, and somatic intelligence simultaneously for optimal transformation. Carl Jung, Bridging Ancient Wisdom and Modern Psychology. Carl Jung recognized that ancient wisdom traditions contained profound psychological truths that modern science was only beginning to understand. His concept of individuation, the process of integrating unconscious contents into conscious awareness to become a whole, authentic self, is essentially a description of neuroplastic transformation guided by archetypal wisdom. Jung discovered that the same symbols and patterns appear in religious traditions worldwide: the journey from death to rebirth, the integration of opposites, the realization of unity consciousness. He understood these weren't just cultural artifacts, but reflections of universal patterns in the human psyche. What neuroscience now identifies as innate neural structures and processes. Jung's analysis of the transformation process aligns perfectly with what we know about neuroplasticity. He identified that lasting change requires conscious recognition of unconscious patterns, what neuroscience calls metacognitive awareness, integration of opposites, balancing different neural networks, symbolic engagement using imagery and ritual to access non-verbal brain regions, sustained practice, repetition necessary for neural pathway formation, community support, social mirroring for reinforcing new patterns. Jung's concept of the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing viewpoints simultaneously until a new synthesis emerges, describes what neuroscientists now identify as the integration of different brain hemispheres and networks. His understanding of dreams as compensatory mechanisms reflects knowledge of how the brain processes and integrates experiences during sleep, literally rewiring neural connections to create new possibilities. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." From a neuroscientific perspective, this involves dismantling conditioned neural patterns that don't serve us and strengthening those that align with our authentic nature and highest values. Practical neuroplastic transformation, ancient methods, modern understanding. Now let's get practical. How do we apply these ancient wisdom principles using modern understanding of neuroplasticity to actually transform our minds? 1. the practice of presence, mindfulness meditation. Jesus taught, "Be still and know that I am God." The Essenes practiced continuous awareness. Jung emphasized present moment consciousness. All were describing what neuroscience calls mindfulness, sustained attention to present moment experience without judgment. Neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Lazar's research shows that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice increases cortical thickness in areas associated with attention, sensory processing, and empathy. Start with just 10 minutes daily of focused breathing or present moment awareness. 2. Cognitive reframing, renewing the mind. Romans 12:2 instructs us to be transformed by the renewal of your mind. This is cognitive reframing, consciously choosing thoughts that align with truth rather than fear-based conditioning. Dr. Aaron Beck's cognitive behavioral therapy research shows that changing thought patterns literally changes brain structure. When we consciously choose thoughts of love, gratitude, and possibility over fear, judgment, and limitation, we strengthen neural pathways associated with positive states while weakening negative ones. 3. Visualization and mental rehearsal. Jesus taught using parables and imagery. The Essenes used visionary practices. Jung emphasized active imagination. All understood that the brain responds to vividly imagined experiences almost as strongly as real ones. Dr. Alvaro Pascual León's research demonstrates that mental practice alone can create the same neural changes as physical practice. Spend time each day visualizing yourself embodying the qualities and behaviors you wish to develop. 4. Emotional elevation practices. The ancient traditions emphasized cultivation of elevated emotions: love, gratitude, awe, compassion. These aren't just nice feelings, they're powerful neuroplastic states. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's research on positive emotions shows they broaden our perception and build psychological resources while creating lasting changes in brain structure. Practices like loving-kindness meditation, gratitude journaling, and heart coherence breathing literally rewire the brain for greater resilience and well-being. 5. Community and service. The Essenes lived in intentional community. Jesus emphasized love and service to others. Jung recognized the importance of collective unconscious healing. All understood that individual transformation happens within the context of relationship. Neuroscientist Dr. Stephanie Cacioppo's research on social connection shows that meaningful relationships and service to others activate reward circuits in the brain while reducing stress and inflammation. Seek out communities of practice and opportunities to serve others' growth. 6. Integration of body, mind, and spirit. Ancient traditions never separated physical, mental, and spiritual practices. They understood what neuroscience now confirms. The brain, body, and consciousness are one integrated system. Incorporate practices that engage your whole being. Yoga, Tai Chi, dance, breathwork, chanting, or any activity that combines movement, breath, intention, and awareness. Living the transformation. The ultimate goal of all these practices isn't just personal improvement, it's becoming who you truly are beneath all the conditioning and limitations. It's what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven within, what Jung called individuation, what neuroscientists call optimal brain function. This transformation isn't just individual, it's collective. As each person awakens to their authentic nature and highest possibilities, they contribute to what Jung called the evolution of human consciousness. Your personal neuroplastic transformation creates ripple effects that influence everyone around you through mirror neuron activation and morphic resonance. The ancient masters understood something profound. Consciousness is not produced by the brain, it works through the brain. The brain is like a radio that can be tuned to different frequencies of consciousness. Most people's radios are tuned to fear, limitation, and separation, because that's what their neural patterns have been conditioned to receive. But through the practices we've discussed, presence, cognitive reframing, visualization, emotional elevation, community, and integration, we can retune our neural radio to higher frequencies of love, wisdom, truth, and unity. This is what Romans 12:2 is really pointing to: the complete transformation of your consciousness through the renewal of your mind. Not just thinking different thoughts, but literally becoming a different person at the neural level. The mystics throughout history have described this transformation using different language: enlightenment, salvation, awakening, self-realization. But they're all pointing to the same neuroplastic process: the rewiring of consciousness from fear to love, from limitation to possibility, from separation to unity. As we conclude this journey into the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience, I want to leave you with both an understanding and an invitation. The understanding is this: your mind is not fixed, your personality is not permanent, your limitations are not real. Through the principles we've explored today, you have the power to literally rewire your brain and transform your life in ways that ancient mystics called miraculous and modern science calls neuroplastic. The invitation is to begin this transformation today. Choose one practice we've discussed and commit to it for the next 30 days. Whether it's 10 minutes of daily mindfulness, cognitive reframing of negative thoughts, visualization of your highest self, cultivation of gratitude, or service to others, choose something and begin. Remember, transformation isn't a destination, it's a way of life. Every moment offers an opportunity to choose thoughts, emotions, and actions that align with who you're becoming, rather than who you've been. The ancient masters knew something that modern people have largely forgotten. You are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness that observes and chooses your thoughts. You are not your brain patterns. You are the awareness that can reshape those patterns. You are not limited by your past. You are empowered by your potential. The same divine intelligence that spoke through Jesus, guided the Essenes, and inspired Jung's insights is available to you right now. It's not outside of you. It's the deepest truth of who you are. So begin today, renew your mind, transform your life, and remember, as you change, you give others permission to change as well. Your transformation becomes a gift, not just to yourself, but to the entire world. The kingdom of heaven is within you. The time is now. Begin.